Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Drinksglue, and tonight we are airing our FFR randomizer submission. Joining me in the broadcast booth tonight is Taco Mage and Medis24. Medis, what do we have in store for everybody tonight?
Well, tonight we are bringing a draft race to the show and hopefully to the Final Fantasy Randomizer Marathon. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept of a draft race, when you play a randomizer, you have a number of different flags that can be changed that affect the rules of the seed that is generated. In this case, our players have decided upon those rules by conducting a draft. Each player was presented with a series of choices, and they have selected the choices that they thought would be most interesting. And we have flying around on your screen right now an excellent summary of some of the choices that our players have made. So we can see that in order to get into Final Kefka, in order to unlock that final battle that they will need to complete to beat the seed and hopefully win tonight, they must defeat 16 bosses. Now, there is a guaranteed skip in play tonight. They only need to defeat 12 bosses in order to unlock the skip. So with the 16 bosses needed to unlock Final Kefka, all of our players should have skip when they approach the final dungeon. We can see that our players have chosen to start with Setzer and Umaro and one random character. So we will see slot Setzer, we will see Umaro, we will see someone else. That third character is randomized, so our players do not know who they are going to get. We also have several situational objectives that will be available to our players that they can potentially take advantage of if they get a random character or if they find a character that can make use of those situational objectives. We can also are starting with a large amount of gold in the beginning, but our shops are going to be tiered. So our shops are going to be structured in such a way that it may be more difficult to utilize that gold to purchase high-end items. There's also an opportunity for our players to acquire high-end items by doing non-check objectives. There are several events that can be completed in Final Fantasy Worlds Collide. If our players go after one of those events, they can potentially unlock a high-tier item.
We'll be getting started here in just a moment. We are letting our racers ready up, talk a little bit of trash, prepare themselves mentally, maybe some last minute stretching.
Yeah, so while we're waiting for that, I think maybe it'd be also good to go over a little bit about what Worlds Collide is for those who haven't experienced it before. Worlds Collide is a Final Fantasy VI randomizer, Final Fantasy III for those around in the 90s with the Super Nintendo in the US. And it's a little bit different from your normal JRPG randomizer in that there is no key item gating. So normally it's either key item or like in more action-oriented ones, you would have utility items gating all of your checks or all of your locations that you can go to. You don't have that in Final Fantasy VI because there really weren't that many key items during the game. Instead, everything is gated by characters. So any given character will block any given location. Not all locations are blocked, and there are a few checks that you can go to always, regardless. But for instance, if you were to have, say, Cyan on your team, you would be able to go into Doma in the World of Balance, Doma in the World of Ruin, as well as the Mount Zozo in the World of Ruin, to go to those places and do the checks there. And while we're talking about the World of Balance and World of Ruin, that's another feature of the randomizer, is that you start on the airship, rather than having to go through the plot and get it, or unlock it in some way, and can at will go between the two different halves of the game, the first half, the World of Balance, and the second half, the World of Ruin. So the entire game is, or at least the randomizer, is then structured around getting characters in order to unlock locations, go to those locations in order to unlock either more characters or espers or better items in order to get yourself ready for the final boss of the game, which is Final Kefka. In order to get into Final Kefka, just for awareness, the randomizer is incredibly customizable, so you can set almost whatever criteria you want. But in general, it's going to be some mixture of like characters, espers, sometimes dragons, or in this case, we have bosses. You have to collect all of those before you're able to fight the final boss. But the final dungeon is technically always open, so you could dip in there early to fight some stuff in there and get out. So the only thing that's gated are the 3 switches right at the end of the game that start the final boss. So if you try to step on those switches when you don't have the criteria, you just get a red flash on the screen and then you're backed off saying, nope, you're not ready yet. But if you do have everything, you can step right on there, and that begins the final 4-part boss of Final Fantasy VI and, of course, the randomizer. Oh, and looks like we are started here. And so now we are entering into what is called the looting phase of the game. Looks like we're starting with Edgar here, which is actually a really great character to start with. But anyway, in the looting phase, you're trying to get going. You need the things. Really, you're just looking for what you can use to get going, but you're hoping to find the things that are going to get you all the way to the end of the game. In the looting phase, Meads, what are your top 3 things that you're looking for?
I'm always hoping that I'm going to get some elemental shields. Elemental shields have a number of useful advantages. That's going to protect me from dangerous bosses. It is going to give me offense because those elemental shields can teach tier 2 spells. It is also going to give me a weapon because those elemental shields can be broken to cast a tier 3 spell that ignores defense. They can be a huge advantage early on. It's always nice to check off those boxes for those endgame offensive weapons as well. Your Illuminas, your Ragnaroks, your Atma weapons.
Yeah, I mean, top of my list is pretty much always the earrings. I mean, finding earrings, it almost feels like a must. And speaking of the Edgar from earlier, we can already see we've got Zelfer going into the Figaro Castle in the World of Balance. This is a great early play because there is a free check right up at the throne. The free check being a check that you don't have to fight a boss or any other battle to go to. You can just walk right up and get it. And the good thing about Edgar here is he's also got 2 shops that he gets a 50% discount at, which is one of those things that's not really well explained in the game, in the vanilla game. So you go into either of these shops, in either the Castle World of Balance or World of Ruin, or South Figaro, the town, in the World of Ruin only, and you get a 50% discount with Edgar. So this is a very common early play in order to get to those shops.
Zelfer has just spotted discounted Mega Elixirs, so he's going to have the opportunity to carry the most powerful healing item in the game later on if he needs it.
Yeah, that's huge knowledge, especially if you don't have an opportunity to either get one out of the chest or take down Magimaster, who, in vanilla drop tables, which is what we have today, Magimaster drops 1 Mega Elixir. So that's one of the reasons you kind of like to see him late in the seed when you can tackle him. Magimaster, for those who aren't that familiar with the game, is probably the most, or at least top 5 dangerous bosses in the game. Not too bad if you have what you need to deal with him, but ultimately almost unkillable if you don't. We're just seeing some. That's I'm really liking this this routing by Zelfer. He's going off the beaten path, probably hoping to find things the others aren't going to find. You can see we've got the South Figaro play going on, which is the very standard start. There's a lot of item density in South Figaro, so it's very interesting to see Zelfer taking a different path here.
And we can see Knuckly Kong securing those earrings that'll boost the magic power of his characters. He's also picked up a Rage Ring for his Umaro. This is going to allow Umaro to throw the other party members in battle, deals significantly more damage than Umaro's basic attacks.
Yeah, and I think it actually stacks with his standard charge attempt, so it's actually is a damage increase overall. Don't quote me on that, and I'm sure the chat will just jump all over me if I got that wrong, but I think there's like an additional 10 or 20% to do it. I don't remember. I'm sure if one of the big mechanics people is in the chat, they'll have the numbers right at the tips of their fingers. Oh, interesting. We're going to do the save Sid over on Zelfers for the high tier item. That is excellent. So during the course of the game, there is a portion of it where you can either, during the canon, you're supposed to feed Sid and help him get better, and there's no explanation of what that means in the game itself. So most of us probably the first time experienced Sid dying because you just pick whatever fish and you give it to him. But if you give him the fastest fish, he will actually recover and live. So there are certain criteria in the game called quests, one of which is to save Sid. There's another one to let Sid die. So in this flag set, if you save Sid, you get a high tier item, and that's what Zelfer is doing now. A high tier item being basically any of the best equipment in the game. But we see also the Schwantz falling right behind him to get that high tier item. I think in this case, this is actually a pretty interesting play because it is swapping time, but for a guaranteed very good item. Because in the flag set that they put together in the draft, all of the items are the best top tier possible. So there are actually different ways you can set the flag of what are called high tier items. And in this one, it's only the best equipment. Normally in the standard flag set, you get things in there that are basically only worth selling. But in this case, they know they're going to get something really good. So I guess I'll ask you, Meads. Would you be doing the Sid check here, or would you be doing what Knuckly is doing and just taking her out, looking for items free and open in the world?
When I have these quest objectives available to me, this is a situational decision for me. I like to begin my loot phase, see what I can locate. If I'm not feeling good about the items I've secured, often I will pursue this quest objective. But just as you said, it is a trade for time. Sometimes it can pay off, and sometimes you find you've given up a lot of time for very little gain.
Yeah, I mean, if this is an Illumina, they're going to feel really good about it. If it's an Economizer, probably less so. But at least they don't have the opportunity of getting the gem box, which is money in your pocket, but that's not what you want to see when you're doing a check just to get something powerful. But I believe that one is entirely off the table with our current flag set. Oh, there's another Rage Ring, and there's Hero Rings for sale in South Figaro. I didn't see that earlier. That is a very good item, but it's also way more expensive compared to the earrings that it essentially is the version of that also comes with the Atlas armlet built in. It's one of those things where if you find Atlas armlets and earrings, it's actually better to go that route. But if you get Hero Rings, they are extremely flexible. Ooh, and Cat Hood in the armor shop, also really nice. Cat Hood, basically what that does is it doubles all of the money that you pick up, which in seeds where you get it early, it allows you to get a lot of cash together. And especially if you happen to know where a Mega Elixir is, that could be absolutely key.
And Knuckly Kong's identified Thunder Shields and Thunder Rods for sale. He's just picked up a Cat Hood, so his strategy could be to amass gold to collect these supplies.
Oh, that is a good point. Yeah, he might be thinking about, okay, I can find somewhere that has some fixed locations, or maybe even take some random grind fights just in random battles and come away. Oh, is that fixed dice that they got for saving Sid? I think so, and there was an offering in there too.
So they now have quad fixed dice already with their Setzer, who's got that as a guaranteed equip. That's going to be a pretty powerful setup for them early on.
Yeah, that can actually carry you the entire game. It is the low and slow version, but it is guaranteed damage because fixed dice, it pierces all defense and the damage is random. They are actually one of our community member Boo's, it's his favorite item. love to tease Boo.
Yeah, Boo's gonna love you for that one.
I hope he's in the chat. we have Hefe saying the Boo special for saving Sid. All right, so we got moving up to returners for Zelfer, which is another good check for item density. It's also got a shop in it, so you can pick up some curing items. See what's in this shop. Ooh, sleeping bags. Love to see those. I can't remember how many seeds I've gone where I'm just like, I would love to find sleeping bags, and you're like seven cities in, you know you got to start making checks, but you don't have sleeping bags in your pocket. That just feels bad. So finding those early must feel really good for Zelfer. We have quite a bit of divergence going on right here. Unless, maybe Zelfer's about to chase the Schwantz into South Figaro. World of Ruin. Again, this is a great play because they get that 50% discount at the shops. And meanwhile, we've got Yeti in the Coliseum for Knuckly.
And this is a great move by Knuckly Kong. This is going to unlock a number of stat boosts for his characters that will make them significantly more powerful.
Right, and doing it while you still have the Yeti on your team, because again, a lot of players will like to swap the Yeti off because the Yeti has incredible offense, but has some particularly nasty downside of you can't control anything he does. But in the Colosseum, that's huge because it means he's not going to cast any like buffing magic or any spells that reflect off the enemy, things that you wouldn't do as a player, but when the AI is essentially just picking random things to do, can be detrimental. But all the Yeti can do is attack, so he is the king of the Colosseum. I'm still trying to figure out how to make the enunciation there work out with King Kong, but I'll keep working on it.
It looks like Knuckly Kong might be ready to be taking some grind fights here. Or, excuse me, the Schwans.
Did he take... Oh yeah, because he saved before going in here, so he must have taken the Moogle charm off.
Mm-hmm, and he's set his characters up.
Yeah, this is a fairly popular place to take your initial grind fights if you think you're good for it. And with that, offering... Well, with the 4x dice, I mean, he's absolutely feeling up for just about everything as long as he doesn't hit Outsider's Madam, which he did not.
And we've got Knuckly Kong. Looks like he's getting ready to do Edgar's first check, which is the World of Ruin Figaro Cave. Interesting move on his part. This is typically a check that several players like to avoid, and he's going to take some grind fights here.
That is interesting, yeah, because with the 16 boss requirement, it really does incentivize taking any kind of check you can find that has bosses or specifically multiple bosses. There are a few. So Edgar's check is probably kind of last on everybody's list, which might be why he's doing it, because if there is required progression here, that shoots him way to the front of the pack.
And I myself am a fan of these checks. There's opportunity for additional loot. Many players are concerned by the time that his checks take. But you do get those boss fights. You do get that dragon fight if that's something he wants to go for. And he's got an opportunity to level up as well.
Yeah, that is true. And you can technically peek the ancient castle fight, or not fight, but the check, because you can see what the statue is to know whether it's going to be a character. So I guess if he really wanted to, he could check that and then walk out. I think if you're down there already, you're probably going to take it. But I could see a couple of instances where you wouldn't when scaling is based on checks or, as only espers or something. We got people everywhere right now. We got South Figaro Basement, we got Narsh in the World of Balance, and we have South Figaro Cave outside of the Figaro Basement check. So this is quite a divergence. You love to see divergence in these kind of races.
Now, one of the beautiful things about Worlds Collide is you can have one player go left and the other player go right, and the player who goes right is suddenly 10 minutes ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's the case in a lot of randomizers, but in certain flag sets in Worlds Collide, it does feel like the world just cracks wide open when you start. You've got all these checks ahead of you, and especially when you've got such a selection at the beginning. You've got Edgars, who are longer ones that are de-incentivized that might give you an edge. You've got Setzers, which are all two of them are bosses and one of them's a free check. And they're all really clustered close together, so they're kind of juicy. And you've got Umaru, who's only a single check, but he's got a dragon and a boss fight that can only be an item or an esper right outside of it. So there's a lot of varying choice there and different reasons to take any of those checks. So I think that's why we're seeing such a divergence here. There's quite a bit that's in this draft seed to do. I don't know, where do you think you would have gone first as far as your first check in this particular flag set?
As I mentioned, I'm actually a big fan of Edgar. I like Edgar starts. I like going to South Figaro World of Ruin, looking for those discount items. I like starting on his checks. I think in this scenario, with this list of characters, I would be looking to go down here at least to do the first check, the engine room check.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm actually of the mind that I would probably be going after Mario's checks right now, especially with having the 4x dice attack. Without any scaling on any of the bosses or enemies yet, you hit that dragon fight right outside of Umaro, and that's like a catapult in levels and experience. And those dice, I mean, you can save right before it. If those dice don't roll well, you just reset and try again. And then you've got another boss right after that on the cliff face that could give you an esper, and espers are always more power. So again, I think it's just such a dense cluster up there, and if you really need more levels, you can take the Moogle Charm off as you walk up.
And a couple of these players have peaked what the Yeti check is, so we know that Shadow's up there.
Yeah, that's a pretty big draw too, just getting that fourth character and opening up the world a little bit more. But we do see that there was an esper in the, I think there was an esper in the basement, or was that a dead check?
I believe we found Fenrir there, did we not?
Oh, that's one that you absolutely want to see. So that's got to feel really good. Locking in Fenrir as your first esper.
Yeah, Fenrir is an esper that most players use in the final battle to avoid one of the most dangerous and lethal attacks that the third form of the final battle can use against you. It is not guaranteed that you will find Fenrir. There is a good chance you will not find Fenrir, since all of the items are randomized. So when our players locate this Fenrir esper, it's a major item to add to their arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only 3 espers, or 2.5, I guess, that really do that for you, and that's Fenrir, Golem, and to a lesser extent Phantom, if you can get the timing right, which I don't think I've ever actually done. I usually do it, get medioed in the face right away, and then just feel bad.
That has been my experience as well, but I can tell you from watching the Schwans and Zelfer many times, both of these players are definitely skilled enough that they would be able to execute that.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I know that I've seen the Schwants do it in a race. Oh, we've got an early dragon check on the Schwants, and I think, again, that's going back to the fact that he's got 4 dice, and he can put together dragoon dice if he takes out 2 dragons. So he's really incentivized to do this, and I like seeing this play early.
I like this move a lot, too. I've played several flag sets in the past where you had the opportunity to fight dragons early, and if you can execute it, you can get such a jump on scaling that you're cruising past players who have already started on checks ahead of you.
Of course, your dice have to roll well, but I guess he must have started out with a good roll. I only saw the last 2 and was like, ooh, that's not good. All right, we've got Knuckly Kong going all the way down to Ancient Castle, while Zelfer is going into the crypt. So again, we're still diverging quite a bit. Ooh, a Genji glove. Oh, if he finds another dice, he'll have to decide, does he want to go Dragoon dice or does he go Octo dice? Octo dice is probably the most chaotically powerful and time-consuming way to kill anything in Final Fantasy VI. I don't know, you give him the choice, Dragoon dice or Octo dice?
I'm a huge Dragoon fan. I almost always bet on finding a Dragoon setup. The items that you need for that are a little more common than some of the other high-end offenses. I almost assuredly would be looking for Dragoon boots at this point, keeping my eye out for a Dragon Horn.
Yeah, and I think that's what the Schwantz is doing, because he's going right up towards Umaro's check, so I think he's going to take out that second dragon for the guaranteed Dragoon set. We got PM Stalkers in the monster in a box in the crypt, so that's not what you want to see there. He's probably looking for either Gigantos for that huge scaling boost. All right, so we just peeked the statue and then went to switching over to Knuckly Kong. So he did what's really good play here. He checked the statue, saw that it wasn't going to be a character, and then went and fought the dragon. So what that does is it kept the dragon scalings down a couple of levels, because as soon as he grabs that statue, that scaling might increase if it's an esper. So this is basically trying to keep the amount of damage the dragon can do under wraps. We got the Schwantz also syncing up with his own dragon fight, while we've got the Crane brothers in the crypt.
The Schwann's getting some nice dice rolls here.
Yeah, I was gonna say he is doing that dragon really hard with those dice. Love to see when you're rocking the dice, because sometimes all you really need. Ooh, Yeti, take the wheel. That's Zelfer's side. We got Yeti taking the wheel.
Oh man.
Oh no, that's bad. Oh, so
yeah.
That's unfortunate. That
Crane
Brothers. Yeah, Crane Brothers early is just it's There are several fights in the game that are really dangerous early that are not dangerous later on, and cranes are actually one of them. Another good example is Air Force, is I believe it's the ship that you fight when you fall off of the airship right before you go to floating continent over the course of the regular vanilla game. That is one that is deceptively dangerous because it has almost no hit points after about 20 levels, but it's got some really nasty physical attacks that pierce defense right near the beginning in the beginning of scaling, where you don't normally find that.
My personal archenemy on that list is the Tentacles, a boss I always feel like I can defeat, but early on I find out that I cannot, and then I'm behind several minutes after I have to take that reset.
Yeah, for me, it's actually the triplets, the Stooges. They like to show up early in my game, and when you have low scaling and your elemental defenses aren't in place, they will just wreck you. I hate seeing them within the first, 3 checks. A lot of the multi-part bosses, I feel, early on are more dangerous than they are later. Except for maybe Inferno, who's always dangerous. Let's see, the Schwant's making quick work of Strontium Behemoth. So that's not a terrible fight to get up at the top of the mountain there.
Zelfer gets some redemption. He finishes that battle. He gets an Atma weapon for his trouble.
Don't like seeing the dead check there, but an Atma weapon is one of the high-tier endgame weapons. So he's got the offering. So if he can put together a bunch of levels and some hit points, that might actually be a good pivot towards the end of the game for more consistent damage. Meanwhile, we've got Yeti in the sky. I want to see dabs in the chat, everyone. Please, if you've got a dab emote, now is the time to spam them. I want to see those dabs. Come on. There they are. Thanks.
Happy to help.
Oh, we got Katana Soul. I didn't see what. I was too busy looking at the dabs. Where was that Katana Soul? Was that in...
I do believe he's in Narsh right now. Is he
not?
Not?
Was that Narsh chest? Ooh. Yeah, I'll actually sometimes, if I'm World of Ruin Narsh, I'll just hit that. I'll save and hit that chest right away just to see if he's there. All right, we are getting Shadow on the Schwanz's side there. So we'll see what the Yeti fight is. Meanwhile, the Yeti is still happening on Knuckly Kongs. And Zelfer is, he's in the classroom. Oh, we just have Tunnel Armoire there in the Yeti spot, so that's not a terrible boss at all to fight here. I'm sure the dice will burn that down pretty quick. Oh, even rolling like that took it down. Yeah, the Tunnel Armor does not have a lot of health, even towards high scaling in the end of the game. So
this is always a boss you like to run into.
Oh yeah. Maybe not quite as much as running into Leader. Always like to see Leader, especially at a statue spot.
And Knuckly Kong secures Siren, another one of those key espers for the final battle.
Yep, Siren, the only esper that casts Mute, and is one of the only 2 ways, I believe, to cast Mute on the one part of the statue boss that is affected by it, which is Magic in Tier 2. So that's definitely on the checklist, and it's going to feel good to check that one off, because depending on your magic defense, that statue can actually be quite dangerous during that fight. Because it uses primarily Tier 3 magic, but also does things like Stop, which is really annoying if that happens to be on your main damage dealer. Right, I see the Schwanz is kind of re-gearing his party now that he's got Shadow, kind of moving things around. This is pretty much a ideal time to do it as soon as you get that 4th character, because that's when you can start kind of honing in on, okay, who are going to be my specialists. And if you're newer racer to the game, that's one of the things that the old-time racers or the top-end racers like the Schwanz, it's something that they try to do early on. You try to get your characters, okay, this is what I want this character to be. This is going to be a physical attacker. This is going to be a magic user. Try to get those specialties locked in early, and when you pick up that 4th character, that's a perfect time to do it. So he's going to go right after Shadow's checks by the look of things.
We see Zelfer pulling the Illumina from the dragon fight at World of Ruin Nard. So we've seen fixed dice, we've seen Illuminas, we've seen Atma weapons, and we've seen the key espers. A lot of offense in this scene.
Yeah, this is offering quite a bit right up front. Now this is going to be interesting. I wonder if the Schwanz I know hates Floating Continent. He will do everything in his power to avoid it. But in this flag set, Floating Continent is 4 bosses. And I think he's probably thinking, you know, that is 4 bosses. He might be heading there soon.
And we do have randomized bosses, so there's the possibility we could have repeat bosses, which will not count towards the objective. They must fight unique bosses.
Oh, that is indeed true. I had forgotten about that. So yeah, they need 16 unique bosses. So that is even harder leaning on that whole boss density thing. And the interesting thing is that a dragon is not a boss. So taking out these dragons is only really giving them levels, high tier items, and progress towards Dragoon. It actually isn't giving them any progression from an endgame standpoint as far as what they need to achieve. It's actually an interesting part of the seed because a lot of times in draft races or in like Seed of the Weeks, you'll see dragons thrown into the main objective. But in this case, there's, other than the levels and the items you get, there's no incentive to go after the dragons. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody does more than 2.
The dragons can also sometimes be seen as a time waste because, yes, you do get a lot of...
You are required to do 16 bosses. That is a lot of experience just in bosses. So you might be thinking, you know, I don't need the dragons to get to the levels I need in order to do Final Kafka. 16 bosses is a lot. For comparison, if we go back to Colosseum, the skip there, I believe, the skip or the requirement was 12 bosses. And you didn't always get that by the time you were ready for KT, or KT being Kefka's Tower. I'm sorry to use an acronym right off the bat there, everyone. So
we can see...
Go for it.
Oh, I was to say, Shadow gets sneezed away and loses experience on that fight for the Schwanz at his favorite check.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're seeing a lot of overlap now as we've got, or crossover, as Knuckly Kong is now cleaning out the crypt, and we've got Zelfer heading up towards Umaro's check. So we're doing a lot of cross-pollination here, but the Schwanz is the only one who's got Shadow and is heading up to Floating Continent. So depending on what's there, this could be a bit of a game maker, the fact that he got up there first. And it could also be 2 dead checks and an esper, and then you just feel really bad.
And Knuckly Kong did not do that Sid quest, so he does not have those fixed dice our other players have.
That is true. Yeah, we might see the fact that he had kind of jumped out ahead of everybody by not doing that, by getting more looting done. But he doesn't have that power of the fixed dice, so it's hard to know if that's going to, in the end, affect his ability to progress, or if he's going to find the items he needs in order to push through that. Now, we do know that he's about to get an Illumina on the path that he's on right now, so an Illumina is, again, very endgame weapon, incredibly powerful, so if you're thinking about, you know, how do you progress through a seed, you're always looking, what do I have that is enough? You don't need perfect, you don't even need overpowered, you just need enough. And Illumina is definitely enough.
The beauty of finding that Illumina is once you have that weapon, as soon as you know what character that goes on, you have a character who is finished building, and that is less time you have to think about developing that character, more time to focus on completing checks and getting to the end of the seed.
Absolutely. So now we see, well, that's an interesting play by Zelfer. He's going over to check the... You don't see... Oh, did he not already do... I was going to say, did he already do... He's checking... He must be checking World of Balance Collingen just because nobody else is probably going to go there. But I'm not sure if I saw... Did he do the free check there? I don't recall.
And he's... I don't believe he's done that yet. It
okay,
looks
so
like
that
he's
may be...
Yeah, and he's stocking up on items too.
Yeah, it's an interesting play. I'm not sure. We'll have to ask him about that in the interview. But again, you don't often see World of Balance Collingen, so that might be the very reason why he did it, because he knows the other 2 probably aren't going to.
He does have Mirage Vests, which are one of the nicer pieces of armor in the game.
Yeah, that is one of the things that you can use in order to get what's called combos protection, which we talked about earlier. All right, first thing on Floating Continent after Fun Bobby is an Esper, and the Schwanz isn't even going to bother to safety save, he's just going for it. Well, I guess with 4x fixed dice, you're not really worried about too much at the end of this pathway. Even Magimaster is not that big a deal against fixed dice.
You reach a point where you realize that you have enough to get through everything, and the seed begins to snowball at that point where you're really going to have very little trouble. And if you spend time trying to overthink it, go through your menus, making saves, things like that, it eats up time that you don't necessarily have, especially against some of the competition that the Schwanz is facing tonight.
Oh yeah, I mean, even in things where we race and it's close, I feel like sometimes I lose just by the number of saves I take because I am much more careful, and the Schwanz is just good enough that he doesn't need the safety save. Alright, we are coming up here to the end of Floating Castle, so we'll get to see who the Atma Weapon boss is. Again, this will be the fight whether you know, oh, he's going to take this as a safety save. That is interesting. I don't see that very often. I generally save at the beginning and then go all the way through and skip the safety save. But, you know, this might actually be better. I might have to start doing this. This is a cool play. I never thought about doing it this way.
He may be thinking if he doesn't like what he sees, he can reset out and exit the Floating Continent.
Right. Yeah. And is this? I don't believe this seed has Y remove, because I was gonna say you could also be thinking that he's check it, see if it's a unique boss, then Y remove it, but I don't remember if Y remove was in the
I do not believe these players have access to Y remove.
Okay, well then, it's just Whelk, so definitely
Yeah.
no need. Oh wait, he's got Yeti and Whelk. Okay, there's a need for a little bit of caution here. Yeah, Umaru is probably the Whelk's biggest ally.
That he tanks that lightning from the Whelk very well.
Yeah, he's got some good elemental shields. He's got some decent defense, and he's got a jumper doing Dragoon dice, so of course does way more damage to the shell than he did to the Whelk head. And again, for those who haven't played Final Fantasy VI, the Whelk is a special enemy in that the head is the only actual part of it that you can use to kill it. Technically, I'll cover that in a second. But if you attack the shell in any way, shape, or form, it will always retaliate with lightning damage. Now, it actually is possible to kill the shell, and I've done it a couple of times in Berserk Seeds. The shell doesn't actually have infinite hit points. It just has the maximum number of hit points. Now, normally this is the first boss in the game, so there is no reasonable way for you to do that much damage. But yeah, if you do 65,556, I don't remember what the floating point is. But yeah, if you do that amount of damage, the shell will actually die.
The interesting thing about this boss fight and why a lot of players do not like running into it is not that it is challenging. The Schwanz will easily defeat Whelk, but it consumes a lot of time. It can hide in that shell and really slow down your progress.
We got a question in chat from Nizular. It says, is Whelk really the only example of this? And in this exact specific way, yes. Whelk is the only one that goes to hide inside of its shell, and the shell being a guaranteed retaliation attack of thunder or lightning damage. There are other bosses that have very high retaliation chances, and I believe there are some that have almost 100% retaliation chance. But Whelk is the only one that really does it's got one part that you have to kill, and that's the only part that can be used to kill the boss. Other than, I guess, arguably multi-part bosses where the one part of the boss can die, but the other parts are generally actually weaker, and you can just kill them outright, usually one or two attacks. Go for it.
There is a sprite swap enemy of Whelk that you may encounter. It's a monster in a box enemy, but it does not have Whelk's defenses. You can easily defeat the shell if you so choose.
And in fact, that particular version of Whelk is susceptible to instant death attacks, and you can just kill the shell. You leave the head just kind of hanging out. Oh, that is unfortunate. I just noticed that the Schwanz is getting master pug fights on the as the grind fights out of or towards the end of Floating Continent. Never like to see that. Master pug gives a terrible weapon, is really tanky, and doesn't give any experience. It's normally a monster in a box chest, but you can just experience them in fixed encounters. I think you can also encounter them in the wild in certain flag sets. We've got big old Dadaluma in the final check to Floating Continent. So again, a great place to find that boss, not a very threatening one, although it does have, strangely, the most complex AI in the entire game. He, I think, has 4 different phases and can do all kinds of different stuff in reaction. And at the time that you would normally fight him in the game, you would probably see most of that, but when worlds collide with this much power, he doesn't even really get to do anything. Poor guy. And ooh, we get another esper. So that was not a character on Floating Continent. But he does get all the blitzes. I don't think they have a blitzer, but maybe that might be useful in the future, possibly as an Umar replacement.
And quite a time investment for this Floating Continent, but all 3 of our runners are attempting Floating Continent, so all 3 of them are going to spend the same amount of time on this.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the fact that Floating Continent is 4 bosses, and they do need lots of bosses, so that is a pretty big incentive to just go there, bag all 4 bosses. They're probably also figuring that, with what checks they might find, they may just be required to go do that anyway just for the bosses. So it's one of those things that will maybe get it out of the way early, get the power of extra espers, maybe another character, especially when you feel that, 4 bosses might be required. Get it out of the way just in case somebody else drags their heels on it. Alright, that's interesting. We have the Schwanz going... Oh, probably to pick up some stuff he saw in South Figaro earlier now that he's got all that money. Probably some rods or... Is this where the shields were?
Yes, he should have shields in this shop. Yep.
Oh, he sees the cat with me. I wonder if he didn't pick that up earlier.
We have another question in chat, and I know you explained this well, Taco Mage. Rule is generally to do checks for new characters too, right?
Generally speaking, yes. It depends on what you need. So like everything in Worlds Collide, it depends. If you need characters, yes, the newest character is generally, probabilities here, generally where you're going to find your next character. Because the logic of Worlds Collide is that it is going to be deep rather than wide. So that is to say that it's more likely for a character to lead to a character to lead to a character. Not always the case, because again, random probability, but if you're hunting for characters, you want to do the checks of the most recent character. If you're looking for espers, though, that's where you want to be looking at, okay, which characters have I had the longest? I need to be doing their checks because I don't want any more characters. I don't need any more characters. But again, it is possible to have lots of characters buried early and just have a very highly forking seed. It's all probabilities, but again, generally better to be going deep for those characters. We got the Schwanz now going down into the basement of South Figaro Castle, so kind of traversing what we've already seen Knuckly Kong do.
And Zelfer is warping out of those Master Pug fights as well, not wanting to spend the time on that fight.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I mean, there's no reason to fight Master Pug. It just must feel really good that they got the smoke bombs, because having to run from Master Pug for some reason, I don't know if it's true or if it's just confirmation bias. It feels like it takes so long to run away from Master Pug more than any other enemy. I think it's maybe just because everything that he does feels slow, so if he's taking a turn, I don't know, it just feels like, okay, well, might as well go take a drink of water, make a sandwich, and I'll be back with the Master Pug moves forward one step and attacks me. Alright, and while we are watching all of the players kind of cross over each other and do things the others are already done, I'm going to take a second to plug our website. It is Final Fantasy VI WorldsCollide.com. There you can check out how to make seeds of your own if you are interested in playing. But there are also links to the wiki if you want to get more information on what some of the flags do or what some of the randomization settings do. And most importantly, there is a link to our Discord there. Of note, our Discord recently hit 2,700 members, so there are a lot of us there. But go ahead, pop into our Discord if you're interested in this randomizer at all. Great bunch of people, one of the best randomizer communities I have ever been a part of. And meanwhile, we see Zelfer heading into the Velt Cave, which is Shadow's final check. Again, this is a good play if you're looking for another character because Shadow was the most recent character picked up. You were going to say something, Meets?
At this point, I'm wondering if our runners are going to have to go to Kefka at Narsh, which is a check that they all seem to have avoided so far.
Yeah, that could be the case. I'm not seeing a whole lot. I mean, they've done Throne, they've done the basement. So unless this Velt check is a character, which we're about to see, it is not. They need Kefka at Narsh.
And Zelfer did just pick up a second fixed dice, so he does have that quad fix or that octo fixed dice as an option.
Yeah, I mean, I think he also did Dragoon. We don't have dragons on the tracker today, but I'm pretty sure he got his 2 dragons. So then it comes back to that, do you do the slow, tremendous amount of damage, or do you do the Dragoon dice, which is going to be faster and more like overall speedier, consistent damage, while at the same time taking a character away from being possible to attack. So you need to put less armor on them, you need less supporting equipment. And again, as you say, that Dragoon dice play always is tantalizing, especially if you have it.
When you have the ability to ignore defense, it solves so many problems that you might encounter while you are working on your progression.
Oh yeah, and especially if you have something where you don't have all the pieces for instance, Merton protection. For those new, Merton is a spell that hits everybody on the screen in battle, so all of your characters and all the enemies, and it does wind and fire damage. One of the, I guess, archetypes or setups that you can have for a character is have main Merton casting, but in order to do that, you need Merton protection, which is any of the elemental shields, because all of them cover either fire damage or the wind damage. The red shirt and the Minerva. All of those provide Merton protection. There's also a couple of pieces of relic, I believe, the Rage Ring and the Blizzard Orb. And if you only have 3 pieces of Merton protection, but a really strong caster, if you have somebody who can jump, you can jump them in the air and then cast Merton, and there's your Merton protection.
And the nice thing about that jump command is when you order that command, that character will typically jump as soon as they are able to. You don't necessarily have to wait for their turn to execute.
That is true. It is a priority command. It will, if it's done during an animation, it will be the very next thing that occurs, which allows you to jump over some things that you might not otherwise be able to avoid, like Fallen One or the Goner phase in the final Kefka fight. All right, now we have Zelfer looking like he's heading into South Figaro Cave, probably about to learn that, yes, indeed. Oh, what's he doing? I thought he was about to head back in. Oh, he's going to search the skies and take out Umaru in the sky with espers. Bird protection, pieces of flare. You could say that. See, your team only has 3 pieces of flare. You need to have at least 4 pieces of flare. Alright, the Swan's making the long trek back to the airship, knowing he's got to go to Kefka and Narsh.
And this is some challenging routing. This is our players doing every single thing they can do except for that check. So we're seeing every single check that can be done so far.
Ooh, that's an expensive esper in World of Rooted and Sen. So it looks like he's just trying to get more espers, which is a really good thing to have. I think it was Falcon Hit who said that racers sometimes underestimate how much power having more espers can give you, and they go after characters really early. His approach, I guess, is to go after espers first, because esper translates to direct, immediate power, whereas a character is growth, and if you put that off, the characters that you get later are going to be higher level.
When I'm starting a seed, when I'm taking my first few checks, unless I have a particularly poor starting party, I really want to find that esper. I want to find that nice stat boost so that I can begin to customize and build my characters into what I'm going to take into the final battle.
Yeah, I'm actually always looking for one of the espers that can kind of catapult the early game forward. Things like Bahamut, that if you got Bahamut and like a gold hairpin or an economizer, or you can just get a bunch of magic points on somebody. Bahamut can be an early game saver. It's a bit of a longer animation, but it does a full screen non-elemental attack, just a little bit weaker than Ultima. Oh, I guess the Schwanz hasn't done the Velt Cave yet, so he doesn't yet know that the World of Balance Narsh is the requirement. Kefka Narsh is what I wanted to say. But he is about to learn it as soon as he sees that Esper.
And we can see Zelfer chose to complete it. We can see Knuckly Kong's going for it. These characters don't have their 9th Esper yet, so we're not at the point where we're going to see players skipping.
Well, again, this is also a boss, and they need those bosses, so I don't think we'd see it skipped either way. Although I do notice that the Schwanz, it seems to be a little behind in bosses, and I'm not sure how that happened. Oh, has the Schwanz not done the Search the Skies yet, maybe?
He knows what Search the Skies is. He got jumped very early in the seed and reset out of it. So he may be holding it.
That's good. That's a good plan, because if you don't see the Yeti in any other check, you can hit that right at the end to get his final boss. Or at least, I should say, the final boss that you need before going into the final Kefka Tower. You want to explain what I mean by that, Meats?
So, there are 4 boss points in the final Kefka Tower. With this random flag set, it's conceivable that one of those bosses could be something they've seen already. However, it's also possible that if they get up to 12 or 13 bosses outside of the tower, they can be done. They can go into that tower and be reasonably assured they're going to finish the objective in the tower.
And another spicy play that I just thought of is that there are actually 2 bosses that are relatively early in Kefka's tower. There is what we call Toilet Atma, which is also known as Cells Atma, I believe, in the code. That can be a boss. And there's also the Inferno ambush spot that is a boss. So it's conceivable that we'll see them take it up to like 11 bosses, hop in just to check those 2, and then hop out. Because that might be faster than anything they're looking at if they're just looking to pick up bosses.
And they will be able to secure their Kefka Tower skip at 12 bosses, so that gives them a little bit of flexibility as well. If they get up to that 11, 12 bosses, go into KT, fight 1, come out of KT, and then immediately use the skip, they're going to have some flexibility. We might see some interesting divergence when they approach the final dungeon.
Yeah, it's really going to be how much they want to gamble on at the 12 boss, or if they want to pick up a 13 or even 14th boss. And I think a lot of that's going to come down to what checks do they have left? Do they have anything that's faster than doing a little toe dip into KT? Because if like the last thing you do before you get that number of bosses is pick up Locke, he's got a fast boss. Meanwhile, if you pick up somebody like Strago, not so much.
And is Knuckly Kong our first player that's going up to Kefka at Narsh? It looks like he is.
I think he is. And a question from Usular in the chat, is Zelfer the first to do Ancient Castle? No, I believe that was Knuckly Kong who was the first to go down there. He did that, I think, as his first big major check.
Knuckly Kong started checks much sooner than the other players, and so far he's been managing to keep a pace with them, even though he doesn't have a couple of the things that they did find.
Yeah, and he's finding Locke at Kefka at Narsh. That's a great character to find. He's got a lot of checks. Unfortunately, I should say he's normally a great character to find. He only has 1 boss in any of his checks. So that's a bit unfortunate when you're looking for bosses. But one of his checks is a boss, and it is very, very quick. So I imagine
And this is
pretty quick.
This is definitely a character I would have liked to have found in minute 18 as opposed to minute 48. So you're definitely going to be wondering what these runners are thinking, having saved this encounter this late.
Yeah. it is also important to notice that even as an Umaro replacement, Locke would not be terrible. Locke is what I call one of the big four. He's one of the 4 characters who has the best equipment set in the game because he can use all of the highest tier weapons. He can wear a bunch of the really good armor, like Force armor. So he's very good from just a raw equipment standpoint. Even if his ability isn't all that useful, they maybe just pick him up as an Umaro replacement just because they know they can slap on that Atma weapon that they picked up, for instance.
And we've got a question in the chat from 04 Death. I believe Dragon counts as bosses. That is something we have been discussing. That is, in fact, not the case. Dragons are separate from bosses. When our players defeat dragons, they gain a lot of experience. They gain a lot of magic points. They gain the dragon's natural drop. They gain an additional drop that the dragon will award, but they will not count towards that boss objective.
Yeah, we actually saw, I think all the players did 2 bosses just to get the Dragoon bonus, which is the automatic, gives you the Dragon Boots, the Dragon Horn, and I think 1 high tier spear, but I think it was mostly done by the Schwantz and Zelfer because they got the fixed dice. But yeah, after taking those 2 dragons, there's not much use to taking more, because again, you're going to be doing 16 bosses. That is a lot of levels just by itself, so they're not going to be hurting for levels by the end of here, unless they get into a string of just only leader.
And Knuckly Kong going straight to that South Figaro Cave, hunting for his next boss.
Yep, and if this is a character that's an immediate progression towards somebody who's got more bosses, and if this isn't, well, I guess that's the question. Do we see? I guess we see Phoenix Cave because that's the only one that could be. That's going to be where the character is.
Yeah, the blacksmith will either be an esper or an item. It will not be a character.
And Drinks Glue mentioning in the chat, for those who aren't aware, the Ultros, the little squid thing below the characters and espers in the tractor, that is the number of bosses that they have in the upper left, the white number, and the number that they need, 16, in the lower right-hand corner. You can see our Worlds Collide little splash screen is doing terribly. It is losing hard in this race. Ooh,
oh, and he runs into... All right, so Knuckly Kong survives his level check by not having a character who is susceptible to that level 5 Doom. Doomgaze is still potentially a curveball here, although it looks like Knuckly Kong's laying on the damage, so I don't think he has anything to worry about.
I'm saying that is the perfect time for a Pearl proc from that Illumina. Generally, I only get the Pearl procs when I'm fighting like Girl or a regular Atma. But yeah, he looks like he's got the damage to pull through here. Even if at this point, he's got enough defense that he's not taking much damage from the area attacks, and the only other thing that Doom does that's really scary is his actual Doom attack like there, which that's annoying. Time to have that happen when Umaru is already up on deck. But otherwise, yeah, once you get past that level check, and if you've got enough defense to weather his area attacks, Doomgaze really isn't that bad, but he is just a giant pool of health if you don't have tremendous amounts of damage. And then he can Doom spam like this and just be annoying. I don't know what his chance to cast Doom is every round, but it seems like when you're in a hurry, it's almost 100%.
We can see...
Oh.
We can see Knuckly Kong's chosen to keep the Yeti in his party is leaving Locke on the bench. That is not a move that surprises me knowing Knuckly Kong's play style. And we will probably see the Yeti in his final party for the entire scene.
Yeah, and you can tell that that's because he was trained by Drinks Glue. Drinks Glue is probably the one-man Yeti fan club that we have in Worlds Collide. He knows more about the mechanics of making the Yeti do ridiculous things than I think anybody else in the community. He was making my brain spin with the amount of research that he did for his Yeti-only run that he just completed, I think he said last week.
Sorry, and Knuckly Kong's going...
Oh, sorry about that.
Knuckly Kong's going for that blacksmith check. He's probably hoping to get his final esper here. He does still need one character, but that's going to probably be in Phoenix Cave, so he might be very close to having 2 of the 3 objectives done. Oh.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
All right. Well, that's interesting. I wonder if he's going to put that on the Yeti. So the EXP egg, for those unaware, that is arguably the best item in the game because it boosts your experience by 2 times, I believe. And in this game, your best piece of equipment is lots of character levels. So anything that boosts your character levels up is almost better than anything else that you can put on them. That's a little bit of hyperbole, but it's also kind of not. If you get more than like 5,000 hit points, even without much in the way of defenses, you can weather pretty much anything the game can throw at you except for maybe an Ultima from Final Kafka.
And Knuckly Kong still has to defeat 5 unique bosses, so he has opportunity to make good use of that experience egg.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when he was picking it. Is like, would you take the fixed dice or the experience egg? And as you mentioned it, with 5 more bosses still to go, yeah, that experience egg is looking pretty shiny.
And this late in the seed, I'm looking to wean myself off of fixed dice if I'm still using them. I would not be feeling good about that as my weapon in Final Kefka if I could avoid it.
That's true, and he's got the damage that he needs. So yeah, I think passing up fixed dice is the play. We can see we are speed doing Phoenix Cave here, not bothering to check any chests, which is good. I think we're way past the time where you're going to be hitting those little one-off chests, even if they are close by. That is something I am personally guilty of. If I see a chest that's only 3 steps away, anything could be in that chest. Another character could be in that chest. I was going to say, I think you forgot the switch there. There we go. Sometimes I like those checks that you don't like to do, that you don't have to do that often, you forget the sequencing a little bit.
I'm notorious on that when we do the Doma Dream check. There's a puzzle in that check, and it's not difficult, but every time I have to do it and I'm in a crunch, I will just path poorly on it. And
for me, I think, and for a lot of people, I think it's Mount Colts. I have no idea what direction to go out of any of those doors. And I'm a big Mount Colts fan. I will do Mount Colts before other checks because I think it gets a lot of flack for being like complicated and twisty, but it's actually not that long to do. So I often do it just knowing that other people will avoid it. But I've done it so many times and I press the wrong direction at half those doors because they are facing the wrong way. Same with the cave in South Figaro basement, where you have to go up, or not South Figaro, to go to the ancient castle, where you have to switch from pressing up to pressing down, or you just walk back in the door you just came in.
we can see Zelfer going into Phoenix Cave now, so definitely thinking that's the play. We should see our 6th character here.
Yep, I think ultimately this seed is actually fairly linear once you get past all of the initial choices. We're seeing a sync up between Zelfer and Knuckly Kong, and I think the Schwantz will be heading there shortly as well. Oh, we got another dragon check. Oh, probably making use of that experience egg.
And I don't believe our other 2 players went for that experience egg. I don't believe they know it's there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with the Schwantz and Zelfer on this. I absolutely would have skipped that check. But in this case, like, there was something pretty critical there. Taking an extra dragon when you've got that experience egg, that's a lot of levels. That's a lot of experience. You can get a physical attacker just boosted through the roof just with an extra dragon or 2. Yep, we've got definitely a bunch of syncing up happening here. Be interesting. Well, I don't think Zelfer is going to go after the dragon because again, he doesn't have the experience egg. He's got he's got that Atma weapon up off the ground, so we'll probably see a skip over there. But I think at this point, I'm thinking Knuckly Kong is just a little bit in the lead at this point. And again, it may all come back to the fact that he did not do saving Sid.
Yep. Spending that time on the checks has helped him progress tremendously.
Yeah, but just having that upfront power, as you can see, Zelfer is right on his heels. So at the end, the Schwantz is cruising on in there too. So as we're getting a sync up here, It's still anybody's game. A bad tier 2 is all it takes to swing a race.
And we get Mog as character number 6, so our players are going to have to revisit Narsh looking for that esper.
Yeah, that's a required backtrack because Mog was behind locks, so that they could not have clustered those checks even if they'd wanted to. And interestingly, Mog is another one where only one of his checks ends in a boss.
And if you're watching, you may have noticed the auto life 3 objective complete on Knuckly Kong's screen. All of our players are going to get this objective completed by doing activities in the Phoenix Cave. From this point forward, all of our characters will start every battle with life 3 already cast on their characters. That is a battle res. When their characters die in battle, they will be automatically resurrected once.
And also, super important here is that at every tier of the final Kefka fight, there are 4 tiers. Every tier, that is reapplied. So that if nobody dies in tier 3, that can be their calmness protection. They don't have to take a turn casting Golem or Fenrir if they just want to blast damage out.
It looks like we have Terra in her vanilla location at the Moogle defense, and we've got the Yeti on Knuckly Kong's screen coming down to her rescue.
Excellent. So that means we're just looking for one more Esper for, depending on this is a unique boss, for a potential toe dip into the final Kefka Tower. Nope, and we're going for skip. That's good. I would expect that from players of this caliber. Yeah, this is one of those skips that I think once this check was added, it took us a little while to figure out how to do this, and now like it's something that I think everybody should try for. It's actually, I think, easier than the Kefka and Narsh skip. So if you've never successfully done this skip, watch some of the racers do it. It's, I think, one of the more forgiving ones because those I guess wolf walkers are moving so slowly and deliberately, it's actually pretty easy to time. So if you're trying to work on the Narsh skip and the Kefka Narsh skip and not getting it, try this skip instead. It's actually very doable. And we see Chad.
And this is a boss that's actually going to be a liability for Knuckly Kong because if the female version of Chatternook is attacked, she counters with charm abilities that will cause your characters to hurt themselves.
Yeah, fortunately, he does know the runaway strat. And again, this is one of those strats that if you don't know, if you are running away during the first phase, you will, even if you have the Yeti or auto attackers on your party, they will not attack Chad until you let go of the runaway buttons. So you saw him there trying to run away until the phase swapped to the demon phase, which is the one that you can attack without suffering those counterattacks that charm your party.
And all 3 of our runners tempted by that Terra at that Moogle defense check. No one's skipping that check, hoping that they can find an Esper instead.
Yeah, and I think I agree with this because, again, it is a boss. You don't have the warp back. So I would do this first, save if it's not a character, and then I'd be run. Well, I guess I wouldn't save because then you just run right up and you get your character at the lone wolf check. Yeah, I think doing this first is the play. I think I would do this as well.
Terra is almost always a tempting pull too. She has excellent equipment selection. She usually has fairly good stats. Even a late game swap out has potential.
Yeah, she's one of those top 4 characters that I was talking about where she can equip pretty much all the best stuff in the game. So there's, from an equipment standpoint, especially if you find her early, she generally finds a place on my team. You can see on Knuckly Kong that auto life 3 going off for Edgar there.
And that's just going to be such an asset for our runners for the rest of the seed. It's going to trivialize a lot of these fights. And so the question is going to become who can damage the enemies the quickest. We're going to have a DPS race here.
Yeah, and I think Zelfer might have a little bit of an edge there since he's got the Yatma weapon up running already. We can also see on the Schwanza side, I hadn't seen that, he moved Edgar over probably to an Aura Lance Dragoon setup rather than fixed ice. Again, late game, that's actually a decent move because overall, that's a lot more consistent than betting on fixed ice.
And it looks like he was doing some hot swapping there with the Pearl Lance and Aura Lance, so it looks like he's switching between them as the situation calls for it.
That's pretty heads up because, yeah, if you've got the Pearl Lance and you've got something that's weak against Holy, that is a great weapon to use as a Dragoon. Because you're getting that, I think it's 2 times damage when it's a Lance. That's just a lot of damage. Alright, so we have Knuckly Kong going up to check, do the Lone Wolf check to see if it's an Esper, I would imagine.
And we're going to do the Terra check first.
Terra's check, and it's Realm. That's okay. This is a boss that they haven't seen, so that is still something that's needed.
And that Lone Wolf will not have a boss, so you almost wonder if the players will just skip it entirely and decide to look for their Esper at a boss node.
That is true. That might be the play. With Realm, you've got a very fast one at Esper Mountain. So I would not be surprised to see them head out and immediately go for Esper Mountain. Where is the Schwantz going?
Is that Mobliz he's heading towards?
It is. Oh, he's going to peek Mobliz. Oh, that's a smart move. Mobliz is actually 2 bosses. Because you can fight Fun Baba 3, and then he blows away 2 of your characters with his Baba Breath, and then you fight another boss, and Fun Baba 3 does count.
And he doesn't even peek this check. He just wants those bosses.
Yeah, where he's at, like, there's nothing really to lose, because then if it's a character, maybe it's one that has really fast checks. All right. Meanwhile, we have Zelfer doing the Terra check. I didn't see what Knuckly Kong was thinking about doing. Looks like he's heading out. Probably going to head to Esper Mountain, if I were to guess.
Yep, and he bypassed that Lone Wolf check.
Yeah. Again, with Realm in the party, that's probably the play.
Oh, it looks like we're trying to buy our Esper here.
Oh, that's right, because there was an Esper for sale. It was super expensive in both World of Ruin and World of Balance. With that cat hood, and I think I saw enough to buy it, he should have enough cash. Yeah.
And there he goes.
So now he is at 12 bosses. We could see that toe dip into the Kefka's Tower, or maybe he'll take another fast check, like go over to that Esper Mountain and hit that real quick just to see if it's a different boss. Because again, it's a bit of a spicy play to go right to statues, even though he does have skip now. The Schwantz finishing off a pretty easy boss at this point, being Flame Eater, especially if you have Ice Magic, which I don't think I saw anybody actually having, but looks like he's got fire protection, so no big deal. He's going to burn it down real quick with the VK by the looks of things.
And Knuckly Kong going for an Opera House Dragon here. This will not get him progression. He must be wanting more levels or hoping for more equipment.
Yeah, again, with that XP egg, this is a lot of levels. Again, it's kind of a surprising play. I would think that you would feel like you have enough, but maybe he's looking to really trivialize the final Kefka fight and try to get ahead that way. Right, we got Zelfer. What's Zelfer? Is Zelfer going to make the... might be making the Mobilist play too. Oh no, he's gonna try to. Oh, he's gonna do the shop, so they're gonna see that EXP egg. Looks like the Schwantz and Zelfer are both doing this. Oh, that's gonna feel bad right this late in the seed. Yep, that's a really close sync up between the Schwantz and Zelfer. That pause. There were probably some words. All right, where's everybody headed next? Oh, he's actually going to put the XP egg on too. I bet she figures 4 more bosses. That's plenty of opportunity, especially if you do middle path with. I think he put it on lock, so if you do middle path with lock, that could be quite a bit of levels.
We should see the Schwantz get his 9th Esper here.
Yep, and that's going to be put him in a really good spot because he's got the 13 bosses, so that makes that straight to statue play pretty juicy.
Did he just sell the experience eggs to buy that esper?
I think he did. I mean, again, this late in the seed, you got high 30s. That's not a
Yeah.
terrible play.
And when you have fairly standard scaling, you're looking to be around your mid to upper 30s as you're going into this final area. If you're in that range, you're going to have plenty of levels to defeat the final boss.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to see Knuckly Kong at least dip a toe into Kefka's Tower. It'll be interesting to see if he does statues right away with the gamble, or if he goes to... Yep, he's going right to statues.
And he's going to gamble. I like this play. If it pays off, you're ahead. I think it's a good move here. If it doesn't pay off, you do a real quick backtrack with your middle party. You grab one boss.
Yeah, and again, if any of these statues are going to troll him, I'm a big proponent that statue right is the worst statue for trolling. That will be your duplicate boss.
And we can see the Schwanz has gone for his skip as well, so he is neck and neck with Knuckly Kong.
Yeah, this will all come down, I think, to whether or not there are 3 or 4 unique bosses.
Schwanz has a 1-boss lead, so he has a very good chance of executing this.
Yes, he definitely has the advantage here, I would feel. Oh,
Dadalama is a repeat.
Yep, that's terrible. Interesting.
So Knuckly...
Look on Zelfer's screen, he's going up Zozo Tower.
He must be wanting to build up that boss lead, not wanting to take the risk of getting those repeat bosses at Kefka's Tower.
Right. I mean, yeah, Schwanz has gotten 1 non-repeat, but if there are 2 in there, he's going to have to backtrack. Because we know for sure that one of these is a repeat for him. Now, he's safe from 1 repeat, but not 2.
The nice thing for Knuckly Kong is he identifies the repeat right away, so he knows he's going to have to backtrack before he goes any further.
Yep, and all he has to do is navigate setting those switches correctly to walk back down the center staircase. Something that I have messed up many, many times. Okay, so we've got Dullahan in center, so that is, I don't believe, a repeat. I don't think we saw Dullahan yet.
We have not seen Dullahan yet, no.
Okay, so the Schwanz is only got to make it through 1 more check, or 1 more boss, and have it be unique. Meanwhile, it looks like we've got Fun Bobby 4 at the top of Zozo, so that is a unique boss as well, I believe. Oh wait, no, they saw that falling down from the airship, didn't they?
Yeah, in the floating continent, we saw that.
Yeah, I might be resetting out of this fight. Although he still needs an esper, so maybe that's why he's taking it.
Surprised he did not go for the Zen Thief. That's often the move to get that esper.
Well, there's his last esper anyway. Maybe he was thinking that, he gets this, instead of doing that, he gets this esper and another boss attempt. Because if that put him at 14 bosses, I mean, that's almost a certainty of getting, at least 2 unique bosses in the final 4. So that might have been the play. We've got Knuckly Kong going against the Dullahan fight now. Schwanz just take a little bit of a top up with a 10. Oh, we got some renaming happening. he's gonna plug the website. The Schwanz is one of our community managers, so if anybody's gonna do this, it's gonna be him. Ooh, and we got Zelfer also taking that dragon fight. I guess he also equipped the experience egg, so maybe he's feeling incentivized to get just a little bit more damage out of one of his Locke, rather.
With an Illumina user and Atma user, it is awfully tempting.
Yeah, I mean, that's even 3 or 4 levels, because the way that physical attacks work in Final Fantasy VI is that physical attacks actually increase by the square of your level, so they go up exponentially as you get higher levels. So if you're already level 40, 3 more levels is actually incredibly impactful to the amount of damage that you're doing. So taking a dragon this late, especially with him swinging an Atma weapon, that is pretty tempting. Meanwhile, the Schwanz finds Atma weapon at the last spot. I don't remember if we saw Atma weapon or not. I've been seeing so many bosses, I'm having seed bleed here.
I don't believe that we have seen Atma 1 yet.
We'll know for sure at the end of this. Oh God. Please live. Okay. Oh, God, that is something that you always hate to see.
One of the interesting things about Worlds Collide is that a number of these bosses at high scaling have access to tremendously powerful attacks, and they can definitely catch you by surprise.
Yeah, and Atma weapon is actually one that is really interesting, is that it starts really dangerous. In the middle of the seed, it's very easy, and then towards the end, it gets really dangerous again because it's got lots of non-elemental attack possibilities.
Oh, and that's a Meteo, and he's already exhausted his life 3s.
Oh, no.
That is a wipe for the Schwanz.
Okay, well, that opens the door a little bit for Knuckly to make that run back to maybe get the last boss that he needs. We're going to see this. The Schwanz probably kit up, maybe make Terra a little bit stronger in order to maybe do a little bit more damage in this fight. Yeah, I see him put on some stuff. I mean, that's one of the benefits of the characters that you pick up late in the seed, is they start with a fair number of levels behind them, and so if you need a little bit of extra damage in the Kefka Tower Climb to take out statues or some of the optional bosses there, throwing a quick whatever you got laying around on that last character is often a really good play. Especially when you've got fixed dice, because fixed dice and levels is basically all you need. Their stats do not matter for that attack.
And sometimes when you get a seed like this, where you have trouble finding that 4th character, that 5th character, it actually turns out for the best, because by the time those characters enter your party, they already have quite a few levels. They're already built up, and they can be a reliable 3rd or 4th character. They can be a reliable backup in Kefka's Tower. And we can see Knuckly Kong going down to locate his 16th boss.
Yep, looks like he's going back on the right path, so this would be... Is this the Inferno spot? Yeah, this is the Inferno spot.
And I believe, yes, this is a shorter walk than going to the Toilet Atma fight, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Toilet Atma is almost right at the beginning of the middle pathway. And this one is about halfway on the far right pathway.
And this is a rough fight for Knuckly Kong with the Goddess, one of the harder bosses in the game, but he has got 8 times Atma on Setzer. That's probably going to...
Yeah, and of note, that love token, normally that would cause Setzer to take all of the physical damage attacks, even ones that he's doing, but Offering ignores that. So that is a perfect matchup for that Setzer.
And very easily taking down Goddess, getting his final battle unlocked. He is ready to go. Unfortunately, looks like the Schwanz is heading up, and he's got to jog up there.
Yeah, so this has really become a little bit of a foot race, because Knuckly has all of his bosses taken care of, and the Schwanz is taking care of Daddy Llama again. So it's really going to come down to how fast Knuckly can navigate all 3 characters back to the switchers.
And as we're wrapping up here, if what you're seeing tonight looks interesting, if this game looks enjoyable to you, it's worth mentioning that we offer competitive leagues for all skill levels. We have standard competitive leagues that are very healthy with a large number of competitors. We have beginners leagues. We're currently running a league called the Moogle Cup, which is intended for new players. Our experienced players are always welcome to do friendly races with you. They're always welcome to offer advice to help you progress.
And also worth noting that if you like getting involved, in Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide community, getting involved is what we're all about. If you want to restream, if you want to run a stream, you want to race on stream, you want to help out with some of the social media, like there's a lot for you to do if all you want to do is come in and contribute, from as much as just putting together a graphic or a title splash to doing what we're doing now, running comms. So, and there are lots of opportunities. We're always happy to have more people who want to do that. And it looks like Knuckly Kong is the first on switches. Almost missed that while I was plugging doing stuff. It was about a 1:18:22, I believe.
Knuckly Kong really just playing this seed very well. Very nice progression, avoiding that Setzer or that Sid quest check, but it's not hurting him, and he gets to the end first.
Yep, although the Schwantz is right on his heels, so this is absolutely anybody's game. I think we're different by, what, maybe 15 seconds? I would have to watch the timer. Meanwhile, it looks like Zelfer's making his way through KT as well, just coming right along behind him.
And Knuckly Kong is going into the final battle with Umaro in his party. This is a big wild card for him. It could hurt him. It could help him quite a bit.
Yeah, it'll all come down to whether or not he can get the head down fast enough before Umaro goes full Yeti on the far arm. Speaking of which, let's cover what this fight is all about. I'll start with Tier 1. So Tier 1 is in 3 parts. You've got long arm or close arm, which is that arm that's to the left of the screen there, closest to us, the viewers. That one is completely vulnerable to death, which is why you saw Raiden come out there. Raiden is an instant death attack, so both instant death and stone will immediately take care of that arm. The far arm, also known as short arm, that one is a heavy hitter. It does a lot of physical damage. So anybody in the front row needs to have really good defensive equipment, and even the back row, you can see that you'll take thousands of damage from getting hit by it. And up top is the head. Head is vulnerable to fire and does things like reverse polarity and some other kind of annoying attacks, but is not super dangerous. What is dangerous, though, is if you kill the head last, it ends, its final attack before it dies is to cast Quake on your entire party, and it is a powerful Quake. I'll pass it over to Meads for Tier 2.
So as we see Knuckly Kong advancing to Tier 2, he is going to have 4 targets. The target furthest away from him, Magic, can cast a number of high-powered spells and can cast them very quickly. We should see Knuckly Kong silence that enemy because Mute works on it and will stop it from attacking. The middle section is Tools. Tools is susceptible to instant death. You can see Knuckly Kong has already queued up Raiden in an attempt to destroy Tools. The priority target is Tiger, which is on the lower right, the face. Tiger has a number of very annoying status effect attacks that can quickly derail this fight. Top right, the sort of blue-looking guy there, that is Hit. He can hit strongly with physical damage. He has a powerful counter move, so he is typically defeated second or third if you have instant death. And generally, players want to take him out before the fight ends so they can heal from his counter attack if they need to.
And also worth mentioning, again, all of the characters, the auto life 3 comes back at the beginning of every single stage here. So when you see them disappear and transition up to the next part of the battle, they are getting that life 3 back, which is huge in case one of them goes down and has to burn that life 3 in an earlier tier. That comes back, so you don't really need to worry about maintaining your life 3 until the 3rd tier, where you know that you're going to get calmness, which we'll talk about when we get there. But we can see we are still very close between Knuckly Kong and the Schwantz, both now on Tier 2.
And Knuckly Kong has built this Setzer very well. He's doing a tremendous amount of damage.
Yeah, I didn't actually see who he put the XP egg on, but I assume that it's Setzer. Yeah, we got 10 hits coming out as the final attack from Hit. So next finally we'll be taking down Magic. And this is the odd point of the run where actually getting that Pearl proc is probably slowing him down. Oh, the Schwanz gets 2 characters frozen. That's one of those annoying stat attacks that we were talking about. Fortunately, he looks like he does have fire to thaw them out, but that is a terrible one because it can freeze every single one of your characters, and I believe it's a full minute before they unfreeze.
And in a race situation, this is the fight that can derail you, because even if you have the power to easily defeat the tier, it can use those status effects to slow you down, and the other player can get ahead because of that.
All right, looks like we are moving on to Tier 3. Tier 3 is in 2 parts. You've got Girl at the back, that kind of floating head there, and then at the front you've got Sleep. Girl will generally be taken down first because she can revive Sleep with Life 2, bringing him all the way back up. Other annoying thing about her is that she absorbs every kind of element. So any spell or weapon or attack that has an element to it, she absorbs and is healed by it. Though that doesn't count for non-elemental attacks, so things like Ultima or Flare or Yeti throwing somebody at her. Those do full damage. And she has 10,000 hit points, actually 9,999, so she can go down pretty quick, you just have to get there. The other annoying thing that she can do is she also casts Whirlwind, which heals both her and Sleep for the amount of hit points that she has left. Sleep is the spicy one because he does some very nasty things once you get him under 1/4 of his health. He can do Meteo, which is an all-party, low-accuracy, non-elemental damage attack that can do a lot of damage. Though he's going to say Knuckly's got a lot of hit points, so he's probably not too worried about that. But he can also do Train, which blinds and mutes everybody, which takes your magic users off the table, and anybody who isn't running an Offering or an Illumina has a pretty high miss chance. We can see his final thing coming out, which is Calmness. When you kill him, he can cast Calmness up to twice. Calmness is a physical attack that when it hits, it has a 100% chance to kill, but it can be negated by anything that can cause a physical attack to miss, such as having Image from Fenrir or Block from Golem, like what you saw Knuckly Kong use. That Life 3 also would have worked, but then you would have come back with just a little bit of hit points. And now on to Final Kefka, which I'll hand back over to Meads.
So Final Kefka has a number of very dangerous attacks that even at high levels can often one-hit KO your characters. In the beginning phase, when you begin to damage him, it is possible for him to counter with an ability called Fallen One, which will reduce everyone in the party's HP to 1. And then it's fairly easy for him to finish you off if you do not heal from that. You have to be careful about queuing too many attacks up. It is possible to burn through the Fallen One phase, which I expect Knuckly Kong has done. And in that case, he will move on to his Goner phase. Goner is a very powerful AoE attack, but it also requires him to charge it. And Kefka counters with an Ultima here. This is a very dangerous counterattack that Kefka can do that can often cause party wipes. Fortunately, Knuckly Kong is able to tank it. Kefka begins charging Goner. Knuckly Kong is likely going to go for it and just deal out damage with that Setzer, which is likely to end the fight here.
Yeah, Kefka only does Ultima when he's under 10,000 hit points, and there's the crack pow. So that was a 125, about an 18.
And Knuckly Kong with just a brilliant play on this seed to finish first. Congratulations to him.
And we got the Schwanz coming up to Tier 4 right behind him. And looks like coming behind him is Zelfer heading through KT, heading right for those statue fights again.
And we saw Zelfer, as the other players were fighting Kefka, Zelfer was continuing to search for bosses outside of the tower, so he may have been very concerned that he would run into repeat bosses here and wanted to make sure he wasn't going to have to backtrack.
And looks like we got Knuckly Kong in the booth. GG, sir.
Thank you. I was rather disappointed to see Atma Weapon in the 3rd statue spot.
Yeah, we were commenting that we were making the big gamble on
rather disappointed
whether or not there were going to be 4
Atma
or
Weapon
less
in the 3rd statue
bosses
spot.
in those statues.
And then I couldn't decide on if I wanted to backtrack to Toilet Atma or Inferno spot, and I realized Inferno spot was quicker, so thankfully that was not another repeat boss, and I had the right party for it. I did get hit with Love Token, but offering ignores that instead of his jump.
Yep, absolutely. I had mentioned the same when you were in there. I was like, oh, this is like the absolute best party you can brought into that fight. So, and yeah, I think the Schwantz is right on your heels. He should be finishing up here in a few seconds. So that was a really close race. Thank you so much for putting that on. That was really tight at the end.
Oh, absolutely that. I enjoy races like this, and honestly, I mean, the Schwantz probably lost a little bit of time by changing his name with the rename card, but
Yes, he did.
to be able to go into this flag set, it was a draft, but it was an open draft between me and Zalfer. And by open draft, I mean we did a normal draft where we discussed the draft picks together and made a decision between the two of us. So it wasn't just go in and see how screwy we could make the seed. We wanted to make it interesting, but also not too bad to where people might lose interest in it.
That's a good way to approach it, and it did make for a really, really close race. There were a number of crossovers. The early game divergence was actually pretty huge, so that was really great to see. Then it did become linear right there in the kind of the middle end of it, where everything was gated by Kefka and Narsh. So, but everything before then, like you guys were going all over the place and crisscrossing, and it was actually a joy to watch.
I last locationed majority of the characters.
I think everybody actually did. Nobody wanted to do Kefka and Narsh, so I think you all last checked that.
And I prefer to do Kefka and Narsh if I have 5 characters or more, just so that I can keep my entire main party. And then seeing Setzer get knocked out in so many fights and losing those levels from him, but then finding the experience, that really helped.
Yeah, I think you were the first one to pick up that experience egg, so you got a lot more benefit from anybody else. The Schwantz actually sold his for the Esper in Sen.
Okay, and when I hit 8 and 8, I was trying to figure out what check I wanted to do for an Esper, but then I remembered that the Zen Thief was crazy expensive and I didn't do it early game.
Yeah, I think it was crazy expensive in both World of Balance and World of Ruin. We got the Schwantz waiting on the wings here. So the one thing that we were asked to ask you by Glue was, why do you think Final Fantasy VI World Collide and specifically this flag set make a really good submission to the Final Fantasy Rando Marathon Summer 2024?
It shows off how different the seeds can be in comparison to our normal Ultros League flag set. And this seed in particular is just a lot of fun. The boss skip at 12 is interesting because the unlock requirement is 16. So you know going into the seed that skip is guaranteed, so you won't have to spend the time going through the tower.
Yeah, and it also introduces that gamble that you took. So that is a little bit of a spiciness. You might get that high risk, high reward play.
Yes.
All right. Well, do you have any last words that you want to have before we swap over to the Schwantz?
Yeah, for all of the people watching, if you are interested in joining the Worlds Collide community, we have a wonderful community with a Discord. And then if you are new to the game and don't really know what you're doing, we did just start doing the Moogle Cup, where Moogles are paired with experienced runners to help you through the seeds and kind of help you get a better understanding of how the seeds play out. So don't be afraid to join in and ask a lot of questions. Everyone in the community is great and never had an issue with anyone not wanting to answer a question for me.
Fantastic. Thanks for that plug, and thank you so much for this awesome race. I really did enjoy it. GG's. All right, we got the Schwantz in the booth.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? First of all, thank you so much, Nutley Kong, for rolling a Kafka at Narsh and Phoenix Cave required seed. Woo! You are not getting the roll seed button anytime soon, my friend.
It was
I believe,
fun.
although the Schwantz, I believe you were the one who rolled the what was it, the Magimaster at the Fanatics Tower seed that I had to raise back in Coliseum.
You're welcome. so this was just payback, right? You waited all this time.
Yeah, I put Nutley up to it.
So yeah, my strategy was, as soon as I saw that Edgar was my third starting character, I knew I wanted to get that Dragoon set right away, because Edgar could use it. So I wanted to get the high tier item from saving Sid, so that I could power through a Coliseum fight. It just so happened that it was fixed dice to go with the offering for Setzer, which was great. And that was sort of my strategy. And then it was go to checks with bosses and don't worry about free checks as much. But I basically had to do all of the checks anyways, so that didn't really matter much. And I know that Umaro was really begging me to keep him in the party, because he reached out and grabbed me out of the sky on my way to the Coliseum too. That was always fun. But yeah, so that was sort of my game plan, was go fight the bosses. I was happy to see Shadow, because that meant I get 4 chances at bosses, and I was really worried that what actually happened in KT was going to happen. So I took a couple of extra bosses. My goal was to get to 13 or 14 before going into Kefka's Tower, so that I could definitely get to 16 in KT, and we had 1 repeat in the tower. So I was hoping that that would throw some of the other runners off, but Nutley seems to be on the ball tonight, so shout out to you in first place. GG's.
So Schwans, this was your first chance to see these flags. You weren't part of the draft. What did you think of this flag set?
I definitely felt the bosses getting harder and harder as the seed went on. I wiped to Atma Weapon, which I don't remember the last time that's ever happened to me. So the level 50 bosses in Kefka's Tower are certainly no joke. So that's something to consider and keep in mind. And I like having Kefka's Tower being part of the challenge, right? So I think as far as strategy goes, I like having a bunch of these random objectives to potentially power up your crew with Coliseum and getting the high tier weapon. And we didn't see it in this particular run, but as soon as I saw Shadow, I was like, oh, okay, good. If I have a Blitz character, they're going to be in my party forever. The seed kind of just gave us like 4 or 5 builds, and we just had to make them ourselves, right? With the Illumina, and then the Dragoon, and then the fixed dice offering. So that was really my thing, was just get me my characters as soon as possible. And obviously that did not happen last locationing character number 4 and character number 5 in this case. I did only open 40 chests, which is ridiculously low. I think having a lot of money early on, that was one of the things that was drafted, definitely helps you hone into shopping. And if you could find a good shop, which I found one ridiculously good armor shop with thunder shields and cat hoods and magus hats and behemoth suits, you could find a shop or two like that in a tiered item shop seed, right? So that sort of decentivizes the looting even a little bit further, especially with having that high tier weapon and the Dragoon set being available if you go do checks, right? So sort of incentivizes checks, decentivizes free checks and checks that don't have bosses with them, decentivizes after the second dragon, more dragons as well.
Awesome. So, one thing that we've been asked to ask you, and it's a super impertinent question, why do you think this, the Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, as well as this flag set individually, would make a good submission to the marathon?
Yeah, great question. So I think that Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide is a really, really fun randomizer. It's a lot different than a lot of other RPG randomizers in that we're not looking for key items. We're sort of looking for our quantity of, in this case, 6 characters, 9 esper, 16 bosses, right? And there usually, not in this particular seed, but there usually are multiple ways that you can achieve that. So it's very exciting to see all the different builds and different combinations that can just defeat a seed. And with this particular flag set, we get to show off a lot of the customization that Worlds Collide has to offer, especially the objective system. We also were able to get auto life 3 on all of our characters because we had to do the Phoenix Cave, and I came across the red dragon. I don't know if any of the other runners did. I'm assuming so, since I think that was the one by Umaro's check. So just being able to showcase, hey, you can, have Worlds Collide power up your characters if you want them to, and that's sort of a cool way to show off how powerful the objective system can be in concert with just regular, giving you things to think about with Worlds Collide as well.
Awesome. Well, we've got Zelfer in the waiting room, so do you have any last thing you want to say, Schwantz, before we invite him in and do his interview?
Yeah, so big thank you to the staff for putting this on, Taco Mage and Meads. Thanks for doing the commentary. Drinks Glue, thank you for doing the restreaming and the tracking. And I don't know who's heading up and organizing this submission, but thank you so much for doing that and allowing me to be included in this process. I enjoy doing charity marathons because not only do they showcase what we do to a larger audience selfishly, but we also unselfishly are giving back our time, hopefully raising some money for charity. So I'm really glad to be a part of it and willing to help out in any way, shape, or form. And then lastly, shout out to the fellow runners today putting on a good show for the audience. And you, yes, you out there in the audience, thank you for watching us. Really appreciate it, guys.
All right. GG's to Schwantz and GG's to Zelfer, who we just had come in. So how did you feel, Zelfer? What did you think about the flag set? Oh, might be having some mic issues. Are you muted, Zelfer? All right, seems like we might be having a microphone issue there. I guess I will hand it over to Meads to start doing some cleanup, and we'll see if Zelfer can get his mic working while Meads takes us home.
So it was our pleasure to bring this submission to the Final Fantasy Randomizer Marathon submission. We're very excited about the organization that this marathon is going to support, the Liam Foundation, an organization dedicated to encouraging, assisting, healing, and empowering the LGBTQIA+ community. It is really our pleasure to put this show on for you. We are just delighted that we are able to contribute in any fashion to it. And we're just delighted to have an opportunity to show a game we love and to promote a community that is inclusive of anyone who would like to participate. Everyone is welcome to join us on Worlds Collide. We are always excited to have new people in any size, shape, or form.
All right. And we'll see. Zelfer, did you get your mic working? Nope, looks like he's still having some tech issues. Okay, well, we are coming up on the 2-hour mark here, so we will wrap it up. Just to echo Meads, we'd like to thank everybody out there, but especially thank those who watched and those who participated and those who help out and contribute. But until then, I think that's us signing off for the evening.